Brian Rose is here with us. He is the man from London Real, who's now over in Dubai. Brian, good to see you, man. Very, very good morning to you. Welcome to the home of common sense.
Thanks, Mike. Great to see you. It's been too many years, and congrats on being a YouTuber like me.
Yeah, indeed. Thank you very much indeed. Now, the reason I got you on was because I saw you walking around in Dubai, I think on Saturday, explaining what it was actually like and that it wasn't as bad as people were making out. Tell us about what it's been like for the last couple of days and how it is now.
Yeah, so there's always the truth of what's happening and then the media narrative of what's happening. Mainstream media is usually a day or two behind, but then of course you got all the folks on X and social media and all the different videos. Some are current, some are fake. So yeah, I'll tell you what happened. I've been here since I think it was December 31st and really saw this coming. I think we all knew when the Gerald Ford kind of hit the location of where it was going next to Israel, it was going to kick off. And then of course it did on Saturday. Woke up to, hearing the strikes had started and I didn't know what was going to happen. My family had visited me a week ago and I was kind of glad they were gone. But, Mike, we all assumed that the UAE would get a tiny amount of blowback because it's never really been attacked before. If you remember on the last strike 5 months ago, Qatar got a little bit of action. Yeah. But, we're just kind of this, Switzerland of the Middle East here. And we thought we would be the last to be targeted. Now, it turns out that we got more missiles and drones than every other Gulf country, including Israel, by 5x. And so it all started kicking off around Saturday. And look, let me be clear, Mike. I was in New York City for 9/11. I was in London for 7/7. And of course, during lockdown, we took a lot of heat. So this is not exactly my first rodeo, but I've never had incoming, Right. I mean, except for 9/11 when I didn't even know they were over my head. And so that was a new experience. And to watch this technology here that I didn't even know they had shoot things out of the sky. I mean, it's unnerving, but it's also impressive. And right. So, look, I'm glad my kids weren't here, and I'm glad, it was just me because I can kind of shake it off. But it was definitely spicy for a good 24 hours. I'd say that Saturday night was the most exciting, and that's when you saw, some debris that hit the Palm and hit the Burj Al Arab, et cetera. By Sunday, everything had reopened and was back, and I've had dinner outside every single night. So it's this weird juxtaposition of, you kind of hear these things going off in the sky, but it's also business as usual here.
Right. So you don't feel particularly in danger. I mean, we saw, there was one video we saw of a British guy who lived on the 19th floor of a building who had a drone come in his window, and luckily he was okay. But I guess if you're worried that you're going to be hit by some random, thing flying through the air and you're in a high-rise building, that must be a bit unnerving, no?
I mean, I think statistically you're still more likely to get hit by a car crossing the street than a piece of debris, even over here the last couple of days. Yeah. I live in a huge high-rise building overlooking the Palm. And at the time when the strikes kicked off, I was at the gym at the 77th floor, in front of floor-to-ceiling glass windows. And I refused to end my workout early. I was like, I'm not doing this. So I've just kind of rolled with it. But, I could see how it could put people on edge. And I think they were definitely for that first 12, 24 hours. You also don't know what's going on. And it's loud and you can't see anything because all these things are being intercepted. And but, now it's been 48 hours, I think almost 60 some hours. Airports are open and the communication has been really good from the central government. If you go to their X feeds, they actually tell you exactly what happened, what was going on. And then, of course, a bunch of the rulers came out yesterday and started walking around the malls. And, it's been a weird experience, Mike. It reminds me a lot of New York City after 9/11. Okay, at first it was shocking, but afterwards you had all these New Yorkers that, previously hated each other coming together. And it was like this weird love fest. And the same thing is happening here. It's like all of a sudden, everybody who's here as an expat is like loving this place. The Emiratis are shouting out the expats saying, wow, we never figured you would be here promoting this place, supporting this place. And it's kind of strange what's happening, but I feel like it's made us stronger. I don't know if that sounds a little wacky to you, Mike, but that's what it feels like right now.
Okay, Brian, I have a friend of mine, Richard Desmond. He used to own the Express group over here. He owned Channel 5. He owned various things. He left, quite rightly, left the UK because he could to live in Dubai. And he had the same message, actually, when I swapped texts with him yesterday. I've always been puzzled that in the middle of the Middle East, there is a Muslim-dominated area of the world, that Dubai, which would be viewed by some within the Islam community as a kind of Sodom and Gomorrah, has not suffered worse or has not suffered at all, but has been allowed to basically flourish. First of all, people seem to be able to drink there. They seem to be able to do other things there, of which actually in most of the other, I don't know this to be 100% true, most of the other cities of the Middle East. Why do you think that Dubai has been allowed to be such a safe haven against the ISIS kind of dominated thought processes of places like Gaza, for instance? You know, the Hamas, why do they allow it? What's your thought on that?
You know, it's an interesting point because this country is actually younger than I am. You know, it was started in 1971 after I was born. And if you go back and look through the history, you find out that it's really never had a lot of natural resources. Dubai itself actually never really had a lot of oil resources. What they were good at is trading, and they were a trade hub for many centuries with India and the rest. And I think like London and Amsterdam and all these places, when you're a trading hub, you learn maybe not to judge all of your customers, and you learn how to make good business. I think by creating an environment where people can do business. Because I've asked myself the same question: why Dubai? Why didn't this happen somewhere else? And why do they do it so well here? I think they have a real history of also noticing when they dropped their tariffs on boats, they actually did more business. And so being tolerant, I think, is good for business. Also, not having oil resources forced Dubai to look ahead and say, what are we going to do? We can't lean on these things like a crutch that you could argue maybe Iran has, or maybe some North Africa countries. So they really had to innovate, and they did it by putting it out there and saying, we're going to be the #1 city for tourism, which 20, 30 years ago was preposterous.
Yeah.
So, you know, and again, you say allowed to in the region. I mean, look, the UAE is 7 Emirates. They have a Gulf, you know, a group here, but no one is really telling them what to do. You know, people are asking, why did they get fired at by Iran? Some people are saying that it's because this is the antithesis of what that regime is all about, which is all about control. This is the opposite of control. But the whole region is changing. And I'm told now that if you're a diplomat in Saudi, you can actually go to a state functioning liquor store and actually buy liquor, which is unheard of. So the whole region is changing. Gambling is going to be here in one of the Emirates next year. So there's a lot of change happening, but I feel like this is an example that maybe Iran wanted to kind of fire back on. By the way, we've had no incoming now for probably 12 to 16 hours, and the airports are open. So look, I'm not saying it's over, but I don't think we're going to see the frequency of drone attacks we saw 3 days ago.
And from the people you speak to there, Brian, and I'm getting this impression, my daughter lives there as well, and she flew back in last night, funnily enough, when I was expecting her not to be able to. Are you saying that people are not going to be frightened by what's happened this weekend, and that they're not going to depart the place, and they're not going to suddenly go, actually, now we can't stay here, we can't live here, it's going to affect the economy and all of that?
You know, I'm seeing these headlines from these British papers talking about the evacuation going on, you know, of the Brits. And I've seen people commenting, they're like, what are you talking about, evacuation? First of all, they had no communication from the UK government. They were told to go to a website, and were not told what was going on. Meanwhile, the Emiratis decided to cover all of the hotel bills from anybody that was pushed on, and to try to make everybody feel safe and try to protect everybody. You know, I think people were on holiday and wanted to go home, but I don't know of a single expat here that is leaving the UAE after what happened over the last 3 days. And that's, I find, fascinating. Now, we're in the property business here, and I'm trying to put feelers out to see what's actually happening. And I just heard from a source of mine about an hour ago that he had a client that came in last week before the action, who was going to buy a luxury villa on Dubai Islands for 91.5 million dirhams. So about 18 million pounds. And he's proceeding with the completion of the deal, even though he could renegotiate, walk away, etc. So, look, you would expect possibly less people to come here, but in the long run, this action on Iran makes the whole place a safer region because you don't have this constant threat over your head. So the jury's still out, Mike, on what this is going to do. And the news cycle is so short, as you know. A week from now, are people going to remember? I don't know, but I'm here to stay. Cool.
Well, listen, let's make this a regular thing. We'll talk to you from time to time, Brian, and good luck with it all. And great to see you. And we'll see you soon. Brian Rose there.